Hi guys, my name is LC,
My name is JT.
and welcome to F1 Decoded episode 5. Now in this video we're going to be battling the two Brazilian world champions of Nelson Piquet and Emerson Fittipaldi. I'm be discussing Nelson and JT is going to be discussing Emerson. So let's get on with Nelson Piquet, the first Brazilian we're going to be discussing in this. Now he won his 3 world championships in 1981, 1983 and 1987. So the Brazilian driver was born in Rio de Janeiro, had 204 starts in Formula 1. He had 207 entries and only 204 starts. His first entry in Formula 1 was in 1978 German Grand Prix. His first victory was in 1980 at the United States Grand Prix. His last win was at the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix, and his last entry was the 1991 Australian Grand Prix. He started off his career in Brabham in 1978. He came from British Formula 3 racing, which he broke the record of Jackie Stewart in terms of wins in Formula 3. So it was really great to see him in Formula 1 at that time. Again, we'll go into more detail in the video, but he was definitely inspired by Emerson Fittipaldi. He had a very long career at Brabham, 1978 to 1985, where he achieved so much, obviously in terms of himself, finding himself, his experience, his relationship with the team, and obviously that brought him his very first victory in Formula 1 at the US Grand Prix West. He moved to Williams in 1986 to 1987. Again, this transition was almost like, I don't know if he found his feet at the moment. He was really missing Brabham as a team, but had to move on. They left Cosworth, and he was just saying he was trying to find his feet again in a winning car. He was very much struggling, I say, in the 1986 season to what he wanted. Remember, he was leading off with 2 world championships with Brabham, so trying to get his feet. But then in 1987, he found them again to become a 3-time world champion, which was amazing, and that's what he wanted. He moved to Lotus in 1988, and he was there for 2 seasons, so the 88 and the 89 season. Coming off the back of 3 world championships was amazing, and he was definitely a driver, very much kind of like anticipated in the sport. Drivers on the grid even then looked forward to him because he was always in pole position, and obviously knew that he would be a legend and remembered when he'd eventually leave Formula 1. He did leave in 1991 and then went to IndyCar. Now he was very successful. He was very successful in the IndyCar and the Indy 500 series, and he's still very much around in the Formula 1 paddock at the moment. He was around in 2003 with Renault Sport, so again followed their career. Obviously, Renault Sport, one of the most successful teams in Formula 1, back and forth, and obviously on the grid at the moment with Julian and Kevin. Brought Fernando with the 2 world championships in 2005 and 2006. And obviously supported his son Nelson Piquet Jr., who was developed through the team and went on to drive for them. As you will probably know, in Singapore 2008, Renault were embroiled in a scandal when Nelson Piquet Jr. was told by the team to crash on purpose, bringing out the safety car and making Fernando Alonso, the driver who returned to Renault, the winner of the race, behind the safety car. Nelson Piquet Jr. told his dad was the first person, and then he, raised hell in the paddock at the moment, and then got obviously Flavio Briatore suspended, Renault with a fine, and then it led to them leaving the sport and becoming just an engine manufacturer, obviously with Infinity Red Bull Racing through their 4 world championships. And then finally made a comeback this year with Kevin and Julian. But sorry, this isn't an episode with Renault, but obviously they were very much. He was very much behind Renault Sport, again on the engine side as well. He was very much at the factory, very much working with them behind the scenes. So I mean, like many drivers do, many technical directors and things like that do. They go into the mechanical side of Formula 1. He currently has very much a big swing with the FIA and the stewards. People like Nigel Mansell and Sir Jackie Stewart. He has worked in the scrutineering bay at odd races, especially at the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos. He has also become the chief steward and the person who presses the buttons for the 5 red lights on a few occasions, which obviously is great to see. As I said, with Nigel Mansell being a very popular one, we see ex-drivers like that, and it's great to see. It's almost like an ex-footballer becoming a manager of a football team, and obviously different sports like that. So it's really great to see. Now let's just rattle off some of the stats for him. As I say, he was in Formula 1 from 1978 to 1991. His teams were Brabham, Williams, Lotus and Benetton. In his first season in Formula 1 in 1978, he also drove for McLaren. And we could relate this to what happened with Daniel and Max, because he was then loaned out to Brabham. Actually, no, sorry, we can't, because Daniel wasn't loaned to Toro Rosso, he was kicked out completely. Sorry, he was kicked out of Red Bull, back to Toro Rosso, that's what I meant to say, sorry. So partly McLaren, but obviously mostly Benetton, and obviously that's where much of his success came in his 8 years in Formula 1, as 7 years, sorry, with Brabham. So a great career from him. He had 204 starts, 23 victories, 60 podiums, 481.5 points, 24 pole positions, 23 fastest laps. And as I said in the video, 1978 German Grand Prix was his first entry. His first win came 2 years after that with Brabham, a team that he went to in the 1978 season at the US Grand Prix West. His final entry was in the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix in his final season, and then the Australian Grand Prix, the last race of the 1991 season, was his last entry in Formula 1. So fantastic to see his career, fantastic 3-time Brazilian world champion. Obviously a country who has had a massive legacy in Formula 1, as you're about to see. JT will move on to a driver who very much set the benchmark for Brazil in terms of Formula 1 and motor racing. So I'm going to hand over to JT, who's going to be discussing Emerson Fittipaldi. JT?
Thank you very much, Elsa. Yeah, very good descriptive about Nelson Piquet there, a very well-respected driver. But obviously, when he won in 1987, when he mentioned it, I was thinking to myself just then, you know what, that's a very good achievement when you had likes of Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost fighting each other. They were the top drivers back then. Yeah. And to come through all that, to win a championship in that era was very, very talented, very, very well respected. So yeah, we're going to move on to the other Brazilian that we are talking about today, Emerson Fittipaldi, a very well respected driver and a very talented driver as well. He was born in Sao Paulo in 1946 on the 12th of December, one day short of the greatest birthday of all time, the 13th of December, which is me. So, we can see where he gets his greats from. He was in Formula 1 for about 10 years, and his teams were Lotus, McLaren, and Fittipaldi, which is his brother's team, but I'll move on into that as this segment goes on. So, he had 144 starts out of 149 entries. Obviously, 2 World Championships in 1972 and 1974. 14 wins, 35 podiums, 281 career points, I will say. But he only had 6 pole positions and 6 fastest laps, which I thought which was quite low for a driver like Emerson Fittipaldi. He got into Formula 1 through a bit of a sad circumstances, you could say. Jochen Rindt, the very the young guy at the time, crashed in Italy in 1970 and died. Shortly after that, and the driver to replace him was Lotus' third driver, Emerson Fittipaldi, and he made his debut at the 1970 British Grand Prix. It didn't take him long to win his first race in Formula 1, obviously not as well for Lotus, at the 1970 United States Grand Prix. And only in 5 races he became their lead driver in Lotus. And also, obviously, they're just recovering from Jochen Rindt's death. But 2 years previous, Colin Chapman, obviously the great manager at the time, obviously they were the team to beat. He was the man to beat. Obviously lost his good friend Jim Clark a few years later. So again, he's in a bit of a sad state. So a new driver coming in to repay his favour was all that Colin Chapman needed. His last win in Formula 1 was at the 1975 British Grand Prix, and his last entry was at the 1980 US Grand Prix. So he's got good stats at the British and US Grand Prix. I enjoyed very, very good success with Lotus. Obviously, as I said, the team to beat. But then obviously won his first World Championship in 1972, which was a good achievement, and sort of set, as you said, Elsie, set the benchmark in terms of Formula 1 in Brazil, which obviously in the later stage going to produce some very amazing and very legendary drivers, him included. And at the time when he won his first World Championship, he became the youngest F1 driver to do it at the age of 25. He held that record for 33 years. So you can prove again how talented he was at a young age. Obviously, when we're seeing the likes of Alonso, Hamilton, Vettel, them coming through, he was like that in the exactly Max Verstappen himself in the 70s, and then he moved to the McLaren team in 1974, and in his first season, he won the World Championship again in a team obviously as legendary as McLaren. So one with Lewis, one with McLaren. 1975 got a little bit quiet. Obviously, Niki Lauda dominated. Obviously, and again with James Hunt coming through, becoming a very talented driver, and that was a driver who replaced Emerson Fittipaldi at McLaren. James Hunt came in 1976, and Emerson Fittipaldi left to go to his brother's team, Fittipaldi Automotive, which was a bit of a good family thing that was going on there. But unfortunately, the car wasn't really that fast, to produce wins and podiums and world championships. But he took 2 more podiums since then and retired before finally retiring in 1978. Prior to his Formula 1 career, he went over to America to do some series over there, and he did this sport called IndyCar as well, a bit like Nelson Piquet or whatever IndyCar is, and a bit like Formula 1. He took that by stop and he won that twice in 1989 and 1993, and he caused a bit of a stir amongst the Americans because this IndyCar thing, whatever that sport is. They have some sort of tradition where they drink this milk, this type of milk that they drink before a race, and he decided to drink orange juice, and that sort of kicked everything off with him, and Americans didn't really like him, which was sounds a bit confusing, but that's the Americans for you. He eventually retired in 1996 from IndyCar. Didn't really get involved in motorsport, and then up until in 2014, where he competed in the 6 hour of Sao Paulo. And that's really pretty much where that's a one-off event that he did, which was stepping his joints up again, getting back in the race and getting fit again. And he was 67 when he did that as well, so he's no old goat just yet. And obviously, as we all know, probably most famously for the episode that we seen of Tuned, when they were celebrating 50 years of McLaren, he was known as the Wolf, which was obviously with his famous sideburns. Obviously, 1970s was most famous for sideburns, like Jackie Stewart and Fittipaldi both had them as well. So that was really good to see. He set the trend for that. And that's pretty much a little bit about Emerson Fittipaldi, a very talented F1 driver who should have won more world championships. But obviously, likes of Niki Lauda was in there, and obviously, like I said, replacing Jochen Rindt, which was I would say very, very emotional, especially at a young age. He must have been about 23 at the time, so just coming into that new surroundings, replacing a driver who has died. But Colin Chapman's like he can see talent in drivers as he did throughout his career. Emerson was there, and now he's definitely in the Hall of Fame in Formula 1 for one of the best drivers of all time. So that's Emerson Fittipaldi.
What an amazing man. Just to say that, JT, it got me thinking. Obviously, it's kind of like David Coulthard's situation when he was roped in to fill obviously Ayrton Senna's seat when he sadly passed at Williams. Obviously, it opened his career. He was a very, very young driver, a bit like Emerson, and so it's probably like obviously that Emerson feels a great deal of like Jochen gave him a lot obviously to fill his seat. But I see what a fantastic man, Emerson and Nelson as well. It really opened the door to Brazilian sport. And now we've obviously our last 2 episodes in F1 Decoded are about the 2 Finns and the 2 Brits. Now, in terms of these 2 drivers from Brazil, how would you say that they affected everything that goes on in terms of motorsport in Brazil? Obviously, with the Brazilian Grand Prix at Interlagos, and obviously the drivers we've seen. Probably the most famous is the Ayrton Senna in the late 80s, early 90s. So how do you think that they inspired, like their legacies of inspiring all those drivers?
I would definitely say that these 2 drivers certainly made Formula 1 into Brazil. You know what I mean. So introduced it to Brazil. I think they had a few F1 drivers from Brazil, but obviously they didn't really make the impact because it was more British and Italian ground back in the 60s and 70s. And obviously when Niki Lauda came in, he sort of took over the sport. But when you had Emerson Fittipaldi come in, he was pretty much the first Brazilian, and obviously he must have been an icon because Brazilians, I don't think they really had an icon apart from Pelé, obviously the world famous footballer.
Yeah.
He was probably the only icon in Brazil at that point. I could be wrong, but sporting icon, let's say.
Yeah,
And obviously Emerson Fittipaldi came in. He sort of he's new. All Brazilians now got two people to cheer now. Then when Nelson Piquet came in, 3-time world champion as well. I was like, oh, now we've got, we love Formula One. We are passionate. Obviously, people in South America like Argentina, Chile, Peru, Brazil as well. They love. They're very passionate about things, especially sport, mostly football, and as well as motor racing, especially in Brazil. Not as much in Argentina and Chile and stuff because we don't really go there. Yeah. But in Brazil, it's a massive thing, especially at Sao Paulo. Then obviously when Ayrton Senna came in, that's pretty much topped the bill. We haven't really seen a big Brazilian star since then, apart from Rubens Barrichello, who didn't really win a world championship, and obviously Felipe Massa, who was the 32nd world championship. Let's not forget. But they certainly did make a very good impact in the sport, and they are definitely legends of Formula One. Obviously, I would love to see how fans would react when when they would see them on TVs, on screens and stuff, like when they did with Senna. Would they be chanting his name? Yeah. Would football teams or rugby teams or whatever sport they play in Brazil could be chanting their name? You know what I mean? So that would be really good to see. But they definitely are certainly some of the best drivers in Formula One.
It would be absolutely amazing to see Brazil, to see what it's like at the Brazilian Grand Prix now. Is it like the Italian Grand Prix? Obviously, we know that the Tifosi over there is very much, obviously they get very close. And from what we see on the telly, and obviously from what we saw from the documentary Senna, it looks like that way. Just mentioning, obviously, the last thing about Senna, as you mentioned, JT, Nelson Piquet and Emerson Fittipaldi as well, along with a lot of other Brazilians who knew Senna, who were behind the spotlight at his different teams and stuff like that, still keep his Senna Foundation going in Brazil, which is
they do
more than motorsport. Obviously, it's development and it helps obviously underprivileged people in São Paulo and Rio and all over Brazil to stuff like that. And also, JT, they've been helping out at the Olympics, getting ready the Olympic Games.
The summer. The 2016 Olympics are in Rio in Brazil. Yep. That'll be quite good to see as well. Obviously, that'll be really good for the Brazilian people. And obviously, a couple of years ago, they had the World Cup, the Football World Cup in there. So Brazil's very good in terms of sport. And obviously, when we go there, I think when we go there, it's about October, November time. So that'll be just aftermath of the Olympics. And obviously, let's get upbeat again for the Brazilian Grand Prix.
Yeah, I saw somewhere that the Brazilian Grand Prix track was going to be used for something. I'm not sure what it was. It might be the torch, relay. The Olympic torch passing on, because I know that's going on at the moment. It kicked off about a few weeks ago.
Oh yes, it was funny that because I was thinking, when would the torch be lit and running around? And I was thinking, would it be going to Sao Paulo? Do you think it would perhaps go past Senna's grave?
I mean, that would be a great tribute.
That'd be really good.
I know that obviously when our country, England, had the London 2012 Olympic Games, obviously in 2012, I knew that the torch went all over the country, and obviously where me and JT originally from Newcastle, it went past there, and obviously I know a lot of my friends got the opportunity to touch and to run with the torch. Obviously I didn't. I don't know where I was at that time, but obviously it would have been fantastic.
I don't know, it was about June, so we were just ending school, and I don't really know where I was. I was probably not giving a damn.
In your room with no friends. It's probably
exactly, as always. But can I just quickly point out though, this is totally off topic, but somebody commented thinking that we were from New Zealand. Can I just correct them and say we're not from New Zealand, we're from England, we're from Newcastle upon Tyne, alright? Can I just correct that, because I don't want people thinking that we're from New Zealand. And I don't want the Australians coming over hating us or anything. We are your friends. Daniel Ricciardo being like, why are you from New Zealand for?
They're massive. They're massive rivalry, New Zealand and Australia, especially when it comes to rugby. But we do keep out of it. In terms of that.
I know nothing about rugby.
I remember when I'm going to go off topic again, JC. Just about that guy who said we were from New Zealand. I went to the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, down in London, for the 3-4 final between Argentina and South Africa. And was it Argentina? I've forgotten now. It was a long time ago. Yes, I think it was. And I remember the Australians and the New Zealanders were there for obviously the day after the game at Wimbledon, the final. And I remember even then they were, the rivalry was kicking off. But it's a friendly rivalry. I mean, it's nothing like
it's a friendly affair. It's like
it's nothing like Liverpool, Everton, the Merseyside derby or anything like that. The Manchester stuff like that. But we're going off topic. So that's going to be the end of F1 Decoded episode 5, guys. To be honest, you could have tuned that a few minutes ago. Sorry for
come back. On. Don't go, please.
We go off topic a lot. We go off topic a lot. We fill it with a lot. So obviously, if you wanted to go onto YouTube and watch something about the Olympic Games and what else have we talked about, the rugby and rivalries, then you can watch it all.
We can do a separate show if you wanted to. We can call the rugby debate show or the golf debate. Oh, no, actually no, don't. We're not doing golf.
Indy 500, IndyCar, JT, IndyCar.
What is IndyCar? Seriously, what? I'm baffled.
We are going to make a video on IndyCar, no we're not. I don't know, maybe. We'll have a see.
So we're going to look first.
Thank you for watching this episode, guys. We hope you enjoy F1 Decoded because we're halfway through at the moment. We're on episode 5 out of 10. We're going through the ages, obviously we're going to keep going back to discuss drivers who you might not know very much about. Next week's episode, so coming out this time next week, is the rivalry that is, well, a film's been made about JT, so even for non-Formula 1 fans will most definitely know what this is about. It's between the Austrian of Niki Lauda and the British driver of James Hunt. A very great rivalry, and one that's obviously changed Formula 1 because it was the first, 1976 was the first year that was broadcasted throughout the world. Obviously it was still in black and white and it was still on
live,
one channel.
It was.
But that obviously changed because it was an exciting, obviously the Japanese Grand Prix at the end was the first broadcasted year, so obviously it's very much two great drivers and a lot to talk about as well. We hope you enjoyed this. We hope you enjoyed this series and obviously this episode. And if you have, please like and subscribe and leave any comments down below. Anything that we've discussed in this video. If you're from New Zealand and Australia, anything happy? Nothing.
We hope we haven't upset anyone.
And we are not from New Zealand, so we're not really going to get into your fight. Anything at all is going to be really helpful. So thank you very much for watching this episode, guys, and we will see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.
Take care, guys. See you later.